The trial of former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin is underway in the George Floyd case. Opening statements wrapped up less than an hour ago. Inside the courtroom, the first witness is now on the stand, which we're airing live on CBSN Minnesota. Outside the courtroom right now, this is the scene. Here's a live look outside the Hennepin County Government Center. A small group of protesters has taken to the streets. This is in downtown Minneapolis. Some of those protesters carrying signs. We know traffic near the light rail on 5th Street was shut off for a short time. Christiane Cordero has been outside the courthouse all morning long for our WCCO and CBSN Minnesota team coverage. Christiane, what can you tell us?
Well, Shayla, I can tell you that all is pretty quiet here on the south side of the government center. You can hear a squad car going by, of course, as soon as I say that it is quiet. We also can hear faint sounds of that helicopter overhead, those pictures that you saw earlier of the protest that's happening just a couple blocks away on the other side of the government center. But as far as mass gatherings go, we really haven't seen anything significant, at least not yet today. This morning, though, we were standing right out here in front of the government center when George Floyd's family, Reverend Al Sharpton, family attorney Ben Crump, and civil attorneys also stood here to compel the world as it watches. Inside the courtroom, it's a different story. The legal teams in this criminal case only have to compel the jury. Remember, all 14 jurors swore that when they walked into that courtroom, their starting point was the presumption that Derek Chauvin is innocent. It is on state prosecutors to prove the burden of guilt. That is how our legal system works. Attorneys from each side wasted no time getting to work, presenting their opening statements with a theme that we will see throughout this case. How did Mr. Floyd die?
You will hear his words further apart. You will see that his respiration gets shallower and shallower and finally stops when he speaks his last words. I can't breathe.
What would a reasonable person do in his or her most important affairs? What is a reasonable doubt? As such, reason dictates and necessitates how the evidence must be looked at and analyzed in every single case.
As far as the evidence goes, we did see one part of the argument start to unfold today. The defense team said that they plan to present that there is no evidence that George Floyd's muscle or tissue show that his airway was blocked. And the defense, or the prosecutors rather, you heard them say over and over again, what more evidence do you need than the 9 minutes and 29 seconds of Derek Chauvin kneeling on his neck as George Floyd says, I can't breathe. Shayla, we of course have a whole lot more of this as we look for this conversation to continue.
All right, Christiane Cordero reporting. Christiane, thank you. We know one Floyd member is allowed inside the courtroom each day, but many of his relatives are watching this case closely. Many of them in town. A press conference taking place this morning with attorney Ben Crump. We know, here's a look at that press conference. Reverend Al Sharpton was also there. The Floyd family says it's important they're here, even though it's hard.
We came in for one thing and one thing only. We came to get justice and nothing less. We came to get justice. They murdered him, but we still Floyd strong, and we still here. Okay. So we gonna hold it down for him. Okay. You know what I'm saying? And they say trust the system. They want us to trust the system. Well, this is your chance to show us that we can trust you.
Only one relative of George Floyd's family again is allowed inside the courtroom at any given day of the trial. St. Paul Mayor Melvin Carter says police incidents like the one involving Derek Chauvin and George Floyd have become more visible in recent years because of cell phone recordings. The St. Paul Democrat says the question is, how bad does it have to be for someone to be convicted or be held accountable?
Unfortunately, we've seen time after time again that we haven't been able to see any justice. We haven't been able to see any accountability. And, you know, I think we're all looking, not just in Minnesota, not just in our African American community, but I think the global community is looking to our court system to see if enough is enough yet.
WCCO is streaming the entire trial live online on CBSN Minnesota. It's free at WCCO.com or the CBS News app. Use your phone's camera to scan the QR code on your screen right now to download the app. You can count on WCCO's Jason DeRusha and longtime criminal defense attorney Joe Tamburino to break down key takeaways every day during the trial.